Efendim sıradaki sunumumuz Fish Labs'in sunumu olacak. Fish Labs gene insanların kötüye kullanımı, çalışanların değil bu sefer daha ağırlıklı olarak müşterilerinizin ve genel halkın sizin markalarınızla ilgili, isimlerinizle ilgili, hisselerinizle ilgili kötüye kullanımı ile ilgileniyor olacak. Yine hedefimiz insanlar ama FishMe'de gördüğümüzün biraz farklı bir versiyonuyla başka bir problemden söz edeceğiz. Çalışanlarımızdan ziyade müşterilerimize ve genel halka odaklanmak üzere. Fish Labs'in EMEA bölge yöneticisi Graham Howton'u sahneye davet ediyorum. Graham, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. What I
We'll need you on stage because there's a video shooting.
on the stage.
Yep.
Okay. Now I feel like I'm in church. Sorry, stand here. You can still see me if I just stay in this space, right? So I'm going to talk about detection, mitigation of cyber attacks before the devastation occurs. I didn't want this to be too much of a sales pitch. If you want a sales pitch, then the guys from Innovera will be able to help you on that. So I wanted to try to give you some insight into what we do, how we do it, and what we're looking for. But there are a couple of slides first. So I'm going to go into who is Fish Labs first, a couple of slides, and then we'll go into understanding the cybercrime vectors, advancements in malware and what we're seeing in terms of emerging trends, and then how to fight back. And that's the key thing about Fish Labs. We fight back. I have a team of people which are there fighting back on behalf of our customers. So we have a SOC, 24/7 by 365. Our research analysis intelligence team and our SOC team are there specifically to fight back. We have no software, we have no hardware. It's purely a service that we offer. So the attackers exploit people, okay? You've heard it many times today already. Statistics, wherever they come from, generally 91% of targeted attacks use phishing. A lot of the major attacks that have happened over the last few years, the entry point has been a fish or it's been a spearfish. And 1 in 5 recipients will click. It's fact. And that's tough because then you end up with data breaches, fraud, espionage, and they're using phishing as the easy door in. So what we do is to recognize these attempts, and we do that in a number of different ways, but mainly we analyze the global internet. We have crawlers, we have sandboxes, we have honeypots, and we understand the tradecraft of these guys. So what we do is kind of like cybercrime in reverse. We're fighting these guys back. We see what they do, react to what they do, and then we fight back. And I'll explain more about that later. But what we do is to mitigate the threat, and we try and mitigate the threat before the compromise. So we've got expert threat identification, analysis, mitigation. This is really what we do. And part of it is the impactful threat intelligence. So, you know, have we been compromised? What is it? How do we get out of it? Or were we about to get compromised, and here's the report that says why you weren't. So the attack vectors, many and everything, really. Anyone that accesses their bank account is a good example. So desktop PC, laptop PCs, voice, SMS, mobile apps. We've all got a mobile app now to access our bank. So any of these vectors are open for attack, and we're seeing them more. We're seeing a big growth in vishing and smishing in terms of voice and SMS. Crimeware continues to evolve, and that's mainly what I'm going to talk about in a moment. And also we're seeing rogue mobile apps, so apps that are pretending to be your bank. I keep using the banks as an example, but they are probably one of the biggest targets, or at least their customers are, because they have pieces of information that these attackers need. And these are some of the guys. Okay? In the UK, we have a program called Crime Watch, and these guys will look great on it. They all do different things, from organizing money mules to organizing trading on the dark web. And I'm not going to go into all of them, but the guy down there, I can't even say his name, but Evgeny, is kind of like the godfather of cybercrime. He's the original, whether he invented it, he's certainly the guy that's famous for it. He put Zeus out there into into the marketplace. And most of them are actually still out there and have yet to be caught. So the half-life of a security control. When we apply an appliance, software, and it's new, then it's kind of rare that anyone's going to be able to crack it. And in time, gradually, and we've seen this with security technologies right from antivirus through to very complex IPS, IDS. As the technology becomes ubiquitous and it's worth the bad guys spending some money trying to research how to break through it or evade it, then that's what they do. So the half-life of a security control, so once you deploy it, it's fairly secure, and then it gets less and less secure over its life. And that's part of the problem with deploying software, deploying hardware. You have to do it because it's necessary. And that's part of the reason why we run a service which is adaptive. So the adaptive service reacts to the cybercrime. It never gets stale. We just employ more people and throw more people at it and more expertise. As the expertise of the attackers grows as well, we grow with them. And if you look at the different fraud prevention controls, so say once you put a control in place, then the attackers come up with some kind of evasion technique. I'm not going to go into all of them, but you know, certificates, SSL authentication, man-in-the-middle attacks, multi-factor authentication, man-in-the-browser attacks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the question marks there are for whatever's going to come up because it's continually evolving. And if it's going to continually evolve, then next year you're going to have to spend more money on another big appliance and go and plug it in and try to cope with everything that's coming along. So let's have a look at advancements in malware. So this is what we call our observables. So when an attack happens, we find a new piece of malware or crimeware or whatever it may be, then we try to find as much information about it as we can. And these are just some of the things, right, from network behaviors, host behaviors, the artifacts, something about the actors, the threat actors that have developed this and are using it and put it in the wild. The more of these that we can find, the more intel that we can get on the piece of malware. And so once we put all this information together, it means we can do some threat modeling. Now this one is on Vortrack, but we have one of these webs, if you like, for every single piece of crimeware and malware out there. So we look at the operational capability of the attackers, the operational security of the attackers, how open are they to being attacked back, their engineering capability, how much funding do they have, because we can see these people trading openly on the dark web. All of the different capabilities in terms of their network capability, their network reputation of the individual threat actors. How much damage does this thing do when it is released? The prevalence is key. How much do we see this? How much have we seen? What's the trending over a 5-year period? And what's the trending over a 1-year period? Those differentials are key. And the bigger the shaded area, then the more prevalent this thing is and the more of a high priority it becomes to be able to do something about it. The Vortrack is currently sitting at number 2. Zeus would be number 1, but Zeus is coming in with different kinds of new variations. But this is what we do. This is how we threat model to be accurate about how we target and what we target. So some of these that are defunct now or in decline, things like SpyEye, old Game Over Zeus, Crydex. Crydex is morphed into Drydex. So these are all different variations of remote access Trojans, banking Trojans. You've got new Game Over Zeus that continues to evolve. And then you've got the newer ones, such as Vortrack, obviously, but Cyvex, and then Dia. We're beginning to see Dia really come and become, and we think that Dia will probably be the number 1 threat in maybe 6 to 12 months. And then we map them all. We come up and look at how available are they, what crypto they're using, all of this kind of stuff. The interesting one there is where we see it targeting. And you'll see Dia now. It's targeting big financials, PPI, mining, utilities, but also one on there which is interesting, which is Salesforce. So these guys are not just after your financial details. They're not just after your bank account number. They're not just after your credit card details. They're after much, much more. It's getting much more sophisticated in what they're looking for. And we've come up with this, which is the tragic quadrant. Any of you familiar with Gartner's Magic Quadrant? We've got our own. We call it the tragic quadrant. Capabilities of the crimeware up one side and execution of them along the bottom there. So this helps us to focus on what we need to focus on. Because we're just one company. We have a team of people. They do a really great job, but we can't possibly really focus on all of those and bringing them all down. But we can focus in the top right-hand corner. Any of you that buy from Gartner Magic Quadrants will know that the Gartner in that top right-hand corner is where to look. That's where you'll pay more money, of course, but that's where to look. And we look here on what to focus on. So we're looking at focusing on Vortrac and Dire as some of the main ones, Drydex. Cyavex we're seeing moving across quite heavily, so that's probably going to be into that top right-hand corner very soon. But this is very important information, and it enables us to go, right, this is where we need to target our resources on what is most important for our customers. And often that's the way we look at it. What is important for our customers? It could be that we've got a customer that's seeing, still seeing a lot of spy eye, and so we will help them there. We have relationships with a number of different companies. One of them is Microsoft. After all, who better for visibility into what's happening on everyone's desktop and laptop than Microsoft? So this is banking Trojans. This is what Microsoft are seeing. This is the annual global encounter rate for 2014. As you can see at the top, Zeus, Zbot, Game Over Zeus, right up there. Vortrac last year was number 4. And these are Microsoft figures. And what they see every day your laptop or desktop feeds information across to Microsoft. This is some of the stuff that's coming out of it. So interesting to see where that lies. And then we map that against what we're seeing as well in other areas. So what are the emerging trends? As the malware evolves, the pricing is dropping. We're seeing malware being sold on the dark web. We're seeing a growth in cybercrime as a service. You may have seen some of the booter networks that are selling DDoS for hire. So for $50 a month, you can DDoS any company you like. And we monitor all of those as well. But we're seeing the buying and selling of crimeware, malware. We're seeing the buying and selling of credentials. And there's this thing now called fools. Fools is as much information as you can get on somebody, not just their bank account details, but their social security number, their passport number, and on and on and on. So DDoS for hire I've already mentioned. But this is where it's going. So whilst we provide cybercrime services, they're providing cybercrime as a service itself. And the cost, how much is your hacked data worth? So it depends where you are, how full it is, but from, if you've got a CVV, 3-digit security code, maybe you can sell those for $2 if it's an old one. These are not our figures, by the way. This is from Reuters is one of the sources, but a fresh credit card, you're upwards of $32 to $45 for each individual card, PayPal account, eBay account numbers, these kind of things. But what we do is to map this. It's kind of like an a la carte kind of cybercrime menu system. So if you've got a driver's license, $250, social security data, credit cards. If you've got credit card, because credit cards have 3 different pieces of information on, essentially. 3 different tracks. So if you've got track 1, track 2, track 3 is actually, if it's a store card, it'll be who the store is. But track 1 and track 2 is the primary account number. And then in track 2, you've got the account information and that kind of thing. So depending on how many of those tracks you have, $15, insurance card, fool's kits. If you begin to piece all this together, and now we're seeing fool's brokers come online onto the dark web, selling fool's kits. So it's a complete dossier on somebody's whole life, in essence. You're looking at $1,500, even upwards of $2,000 and $3,000 for a fool's kit. So fools and kit. So fools, it's a full electronic dossier on the individual. Name, address, phone, everything you can be, social security number, account info, employment, their income, family members. And this is a whole dossier. And then once you've got that, you can then build counterfeit documents. So you can sell the information, but also sell the documents themselves. And then you're looking at 1,500 going up to 5,000. So what do we do about it? So it's all very well having a threat intelligence, and you can go out and you can go, look, we found all of this, and we've seen this on the dark web, and you know, what are we going to do with it? Now we know what's happening. Well, if we understand the kill chain, so the kill chain is what these guys are trying to do. There's specific actions along the way, and you have to kill them at one point in the kill chain. For a successful hack to happen, it could be an APT attack or anything like that. For it to be successful, it has to be successful in every single part of the kill chain. Excuse me, I forgot to turn my phone off. Just hate that when you're doing a presentation and someone's phone goes off. So the kill chain. So defensive. We become very defensive. So this is our kind of, on this side, defensive. Become very defensive, very reactive around our own environment. But what happens is most of the action is now beginning to happen outside of the corporate environment, before it ever gets in. The customers are being compromised before they access their accounts, or while they're accessing their accounts, because they've got a loaded keylogger on or something. So drive-by downloads, Trojans, phishing, whatever. All of those cybercrime operations are happening away from the corporate environment. So we need to change the rules of the game and come back well before anything happens within the corporate environment. Because once it does happen, there's an added cost. It's not only what you lose, what your customers lose in terms of value, but there are fraud losses, card reissues, cleanup costs. You know, once somebody's account has been compromised, the cost of cleaning that up can be huge. So we need visibility into account takeover. How do we get that? Well, you can start off, you know, getting people to report stuff. It kind of takes a long time then as it goes through the process. It's kind of a poor way of doing it, but it's important. As we then move down the steps, website referral logs, these help us. Spam pots, abuse pots, these all help us. Feeds from phishing sites, from anti-phishing workgroup, from Fish Tank, people like that. DMARC feedback. Not sure whether any of you guys are using DMARC, either on its own or through people like ReturnPath or Agari on DMARC. Online phone scam reports, spam feeds, malware feeds, all of these things. And as you go through all of these and you add all of these multiple techniques, then gradually you get more and more confidence in beginning to detect the attacks. So protecting customers, protecting account holders, education is key. Okay, the guys from FishMe were up here earlier. The education, they do a great job on the education. Very important. Communication, threat intelligence, feed that threat intelligence, take it from multiple sources. Proactive detection and disruption tools, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Policies that protect against account takeover. Robust incident response plans, these are all good things. Build relationships with law enforcement. There is not one main thing that you should do. It's a combination of everything that fits together to make it work. So what do we do? How can we help with this? Multi-target mitigation. So our SOC's running 24/7 by 365. We're taking our threat intelligence feed in from our RAID team. So we process 10 to 12 million URLs every single day. We take all of the rubbish from Microsoft, all the rubbish from Google, and we process it. We take spam feeds from all of our customers. And then we look to react. And we continuously monitor the attack ecosystem. So as soon as we see an attack, we go in, we analyze the situation, we do the triage, we take the site down. And we're not one of these customers that take the site down and go, there you go, pay us, we've taken the site down. And the same guys pop up and they go, there you go, taking them down again, pay us again, and you get continual payments for the same attackers. Everything we do is on a fixed price, so it's in our interest to keep these guys down. So we take them down and we keep them down. We disrupt their complete infrastructure. We change their return on investment, so it's so difficult for them to attack our customers, they go and find a softer target. We destroy their fish kit. We look to see where they've got a drop site. If there's stolen credentials, where are they putting it? We take their drop site down. We get the credentials back. We destroy their command and control. And then we broadcast out those URLs to everybody in our database so they know. So it's an aggressive ecosystem disruption. Cybercrime in reverse. We fight these guys back on their terms. And we constantly evolve. We evolve as quickly as they do. Because we're not a box that sits in the corner of a room. We're a bunch of people. Very, very incredibly clever bunch of people. They've all got brains the size of planets. But our SOC's running 367. So we shut them down, neutralize them, recover credentials, investigate their cash-out operations, and then continuously monitor this for all of our customers. So in summary, cyber criminals have proven that they can get around current security controls. And that's part of the issue with our thinking in this market. Current security controls means this is what I've deployed now. In 3 months' time, 6 months' time, that's not going to be current anymore. You've got to do something with it. It either needs repatching, updating, or swapping out. And malware is getting increasingly more sophisticated. They're getting very, very clever, these guys. Exceptionally clever. If you look at in the last 10 years where it's come from and now where it's the level that their capability is at, it's incredible. They can come in, do whatever they need to do once they've set up command and control. They can leave, wipe their feet. You never know they've been there. Someone mentioned earlier the average time a company takes from being breached to understanding that they're being breached is 205 days. That's a long time. That's nearly 2/3 of a year. Cybercrime as a service makes it easier and more affordable. You can just go on the web and buy a piece of malware. You can buy for $50 a month a DDoS attack on anyone you want. Things like DD for BC, I don't know if you've seen that. Distributed denial of service for Bitcoin. We're seeing lots of this happening, where they'll deliver a DDoS attack and say, right, then you get an email that says, we delivered 20 gig on you yesterday. You coped with that. If you don't pay us so many Bitcoins, we're going to deliver 200 gig tomorrow. So what's needed is a new approach to be proactive. Protecting customers and the brand is not optional, it's a necessity. So I don't know whether any of you have seen this. I'm just going to finish off with a few quotes from this book. It's a bestseller. It was written in 513 BC by allegedly a guy called Sun Tzu. So the act of war. This is what the Chinese used 2,500 years ago to, I mean, Sun Tzu was basically, he was a military genius. He was a military strategist. And so some of the information in this book are absolutely relevant today. It just shows you that it doesn't matter what type of war it is. If you're in a war, then the same principles apply. So the first quote, attack him where he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. 513 BC, that was written. Still applies today. To know your enemy, you must become your enemy. That's what we do. We attack them back. We have a bunch of people that are there just attacking them back. We're better than you. We'll take you down, and we take them down, and we keep them down. So in war, the way is to avoid what is strong and strike at what is weak. 2,500 years ago he wrote this. What is weak? People. We're all weak. Not quite concentrating. Don't think I should have clicked on that. Bam, damage is done. Crypto locker, message saying, you owe me some bitcoins. And lastly, engage people with what they expect. It is what they are able to discern and confirms their projections. It settles them into predictable patterns of response. 1 in 5 click. It's predictable. Occupying their minds while you wait for the extraordinary moment, that which they cannot anticipate. That's the extraordinary moment that malware goes bam. And that's it. How was I for time? Thank you.
Graham'e teşekkür ediyoruz. Soru varsa bir iki soru almayı deneyebiliriz. Teşekkür ederim. Soruları kendisi yazdı, getirdi. Bizden tercüme desteği almadı. Biraz daha gidip gelirse Türkçe öğrenmeye de başlayacak. Soru var mı arkadaşlar? Fish Tabs için. Peki. Graham, thank you.
Shocked and stunned. Good.
Thank you.